Have you ever felt a heaviness you can't quite shake? Like something sitting on your chest or wrapped around you? Like no matter where you go, it follows? That feeling is shame. A feeling that makes you go quiet, pull back, and hide. And for many of us, it doesn't just visit, it settles in. It lives in the body, in the way we see ourselves, in the way we move through the world. And over time, what may have started as a moment becomes something deeper. Guilt turns into shame, and shame becomes something we stop questioning, something we begin to believe about who we are. And that's what we're going to talk about today. If you're new here, I'm Naomi. I share deeper conversations around healing, self-awareness, and returning to yourself, the ones many of us didn't grow up having. There were moments in my life where something happened, and without even realizing it, I turned it back onto myself. I made it mean something about me, that I had done something wrong, that I was responsible, that there was something about me that caused it. And I didn't understand that at the time. But looking back now, I can see how deeply that was conditioned into me. Shame isn't just something I felt. It was something I believed about who I was. It was ingrained. It followed me into everything. The way I saw myself, the way I spoke, the way I moved through the world. And so much of it was never mine to carry. It came from the environment I was raised in, from beliefs around women, around the body, around responsibility. I learned to internalize things that were never mine. And that's what shame does. It takes something that happened and turns it into something about who you are. One of the most important things to understand about shame is that it is not just something you think. It's something you feel. It shows up in your body often before you even have words for it. There is a weight to it, like you're carrying something you can't quite set down. A heaviness that lingers, follows you from one moment to the next. I often describe this as wearing one of those lead vests during an exam. And not just on your chest. It's like wrapped around you, resting on your shoulders, pressing into you from all sides. It's restrictive and heavy, something you can't quite take off. And in those moments, your body responds. Your chest tightens, your throat closes. You pull back, you go quiet. You make yourself smaller. And you may not even understand why. You can be in the middle of a conversation and something is said and something shifts. And you walk away feeling off, unsettled, and heavy. Maybe even ashamed. Or carrying a sense of guilt without being able to name where it came from. And sometimes it has nothing to do with you at all. But your body still holds onto it because shame doesn't always come from something you've done. Sometimes it's something you've taken in, from a tone, a reaction, a look, an expectation. And before you even have time to make sense of it, your body has already registered it. And that's how it begins to settle in, not just as a memory, but as a feeling you carry with you. When we talk about shame, we also have to look at where it begins. Because much of what we carry didn't originate with us. It was taught, observed, handed down. Through families, through belief systems, through culture, through religion. Gradually, those messages don't just stay around us. They begin to take shape within us. Not because they are true, but because they were reinforced. When something is repeated often enough, it stops feeling like something you were told and starts to feel like something you are. And this doesn't just happen individually. There are entire groups of people who have been conditioned over generations to see themselves as less than. Not because they are, but because that message was placed on them until it took root. And when something is carried like that, it doesn't remain external. It becomes internal. And I've seen this in my own life, through the environment I was raised in and the beliefs I was taught about women. There was a quiet and consistent message that who I was somehow less. And when something like that is absorbed at a young age, you don't question it. You live from it. And when you live from it, it starts to shape everything. And this is where it becomes important to understand that not everything you carry originated with you, because sometimes what you're feeling was never yours to begin with. Sometimes it shows up in families where something happened in a previous generation. And even though it had nothing to do with you, you still feel the weight of it. The name, the association, the way it's been spoken about or remembered. And eventually that can begin to feel personal. Like something about you is tied to it. I've seen people try to distance themselves from it, leave places, change how they show up, just to try and outrun something they didn't create. And that's how deeply shame can take hold. And this is why we can feel something so strongly in our bodies without fully understanding where it came from. Because it may not have started with you. And I want to say this clearly. That kind of shame was never yours to take on. And you don't have to keep holding onto something that was never yours to begin with. And sometimes just hearing that is the first step to beginning to let go. Shame is something many of us carry in different ways. And if there's one place you can begin to understand each other, it's here. Because beneath all the differences, the roles, the stories, there are shared human experiences. And shame is one of them. When we begin to see that, we stop feeling so alone in it. And sometimes that understanding alone softens something inside of us. And this is where we begin to see how easily that shift can happen. Something happens, and instead of seeing it for what it is, we turn it back onto ourselves. Shame is not about what you did. It's about what you believe you are. It moves inward. It shapes how you see yourself and how you move through the world. We start asking questions like, why me? What did I do wrong? What's wrong with me? I've seen this in my own life. I can still remember what I was wearing, the colors, the fabric, and patterns, as if those moments imprinted themselves on me. Growing up, there were things I went through that I didn't understand at the time. And instead of seeing them for what they were, I made them mean something about me. That I was the problem, that something about me caused it. And that doesn't only happen in extreme situations. You can see it in something like a child going through their parents' divorce. They don't understand what's happening, so they try to make sense of it. And often that meaning becomes, if I had been better, if I had done something differently, maybe it's my fault. And that's not guilt anymore. That's shame. And over time, when shame is carried like that, repeated, reinforced, lived from, it begins to deepen. It stops being something you feel and becomes something you believe. Not just in moments, but about who you are. And this is where shame can become toxic because it's no longer connected to a single experience. It becomes the lens you see yourself through. The way you speak to yourself, the way you relate to others, the way you move through your life. And there's another side to this as well, because not all shame comes from what we've been given. Some of it comes from what we've done, choices we've made, moments we wish we could go back and change, things we said or didn't say, ways we showed up or didn't. And those moments can take up resonance within us. We replay them, we question them, we hold them against ourselves. And over time, what may have started as guilt can become something heavier. It can become shame. Guilt is different. Guilt is connected to an action. It brings awareness. It allows you to reflect and choose differently. You might think, I shouldn't have said that. And from that place, you can take accountability You can repair. You can grow. Guilt says, I did something wrong. But shame says, there is something wrong with me. Guilt can move you forward, but shame keeps you holding on to the past. And this is where we begin to see how deeply shame is reinforced, not only within us, but through the world around us. Because we live in a world that places a tremendous amount of value on appearance, on how we look, how we're built, how closely we align with what is considered acceptable. And those standards are not fixed. They shift across cultures, across environments, across time. What is praised in one place can be rejected in another. But underneath all of it, the message remains the same, that your body is something to be evaluated. And we see this everywhere, in conversations, in the comment sections, in the way people speak about each other. People reduced to their appearance, their weight, their shape, their features. And when they don't match a certain image, they're criticized, dismissed, or made to feel less than. And over time, those voices don't just stay outside of us. They begin to echo within us. And I've seen this in my own life. Growing up, there was a lot of shame placed on the body, on how it looked, how it moved, how it was perceived. There were messages spoken and unspoken, that my body was something to monitor, something to manage, something that could easily be too much. And eventually I began to see it that way too. As my body began developing from a young girl into a young woman, I remember feeling betrayed by it, like it was defective or wrong. I became aware of my body in ways that didn't feel natural or safe. And I remember standing in front of the mirror, looking at myself and seeing things that weren't even there. Feeling like parts of me needed to change or be taken away, even though there was actually nothing wrong. And I didn't understand that at the time. I just thought that was normal. Those experiences didn't stay in those moments. They shaped how I related to myself. And as I moved through life, that relationship with my body became complicated. There were experiences that made me feel unsafe in my body. And without realizing it, my body began to respond. I started putting on weight. There were times I gained weight, and with that came shame. Times I lost it, and still I didn't feel at ease in myself. And no matter what changed on the outside, that feeling seemed to follow me. And I came to understand something through that sometimes what we see as a problem is actually a form of protection. The way the body tries to keep us safe in the only way it knows how. And even when the body changes, if that belief hasn't shifted, you can still look in the mirror and see the same version of yourself. Not because it's true, but because it's been programmed deep within you. And this goes beyond weight. People are shamed for all kinds of things. Their size, their shape, their skin, their features, even how they think, how they speak, how they show up in the world. And eventually, that kind of environment teaches you to turn against yourself. But your body was never the problem. It was responding to what it experienced, adapting, protecting, doing what it needed to get you through. And for a long time, you may have felt like it was working against you, like it was failing you, betraying you. But the truth is, it was doing the best it could with what it had been given. When that begins to shift, when you stop seeing your body as something to fight and begin to understand it instead, something changes in the way you relate to yourself. And the shame you learn to carry starts to loosen its hold. Because underneath shame, there's often something deeper. A quiet hunger to feel whole again. I want to share this little soul reflection with you. Shame and guilt starve the soul of self-love, self-compassion, and grace, revealing the deeper hunger that lives within humanity. And to feed that hunger, we must remember who we are, rise and heal so that we can thrive. I want to take a few more moments here because this part goes a little deeper than what we usually do. Just stay with me for a bit if you can. Maybe this is a moment to sit with yourself and gently ask, where in my life have I turned something that happened into something about who I am? What shame have I taken on from my family, from the environments I was raised in, that I've come to believe is true about me? And if I'm honest with myself, is it actually mine? Or is it something I've learned, something I've absorbed, something I carried without ever questioning it? And what would it feel like to begin separating myself from that? And maybe there are moments we wish we could go back and change. Things we've said or didn't say, ways we showed up or didn't. Maybe another question to reflect on is this. Is there something I'm still holding over myself? Something I haven't allowed myself to be forgiven for? Am I still defining who I am by something I've already lived through? And what would it look like to begin releasing that? Not by pretending it didn't happen, but no longer using it as evidence against myself. Because growth doesn't come from punishing yourself. It comes from seeing clearly, taking responsibility where you can, and allowing yourself to move forward differently. You may not be able to change what happened, but we can change how we hold it. And maybe something else to sit with is this. What is the relationship you have with your body right now? Not what you think about it, but how you actually feel toward it. Do you speak to it with kindness, or have you been at war with it? And I want to share something with you, something that became a practice for me. Every morning when I wake up, I hug my body and I thank it for being there for me, for supporting me, for carrying me through everything I've lived through. And I ask it to show me the wisdom it holds. Because your body knows things, it holds things, it has carried you through things that your mind doesn't always fully understand. And gradually that practice changed something in me. I stopped seeing my body as something to fix and started relating to it as something to care for, to respect, to listen to. And that doesn't mean perfection. There are still days where I don't always make the choices I want to make. But I meet myself with grace and compassion in those moments. And through that dedication to myself, I've learned to love my body. Not because it looks a certain way, but because of what it is, because of what it's carried, because of what it continues to do for me every single day. And maybe that's something to begin exploring. What would it look like to have reverence for your body? To see it as not something to judge, but as something that has walked with you through your life. To look at the parts of you that have been taught to criticize and begin to see them differently. Not as flaws, but as marks of your life, your story, your strength, your humanity. And maybe this is where it begins. Not by changing your body, but by changing the way you meet it. And in all areas of your life, you deserve to release the shame and guilt. And to trust that as you know better, you do better. That is part of your evolution. It is your birthright to be free in your mind, in your body, and in your spirit. If this resonated with you and you're starting to see yourself in some of this, I go deeper into this work through my own lived experience in my book, Uprooting, Shame and Guilt. And if you're wanting a place to begin, I've created a free foundational class inside the Return to Self Academy called Unlearning, Shame and Guilt. I'll leave that linked below for you. If this spoke to you, you can also share it with someone who might need it. And if this space feels like somewhere you can come back to, you're welcome to subscribe and be part of these conversations as we continue. Also, you can check out this video, Why Your Past Doesn't Hurt the Same Anymore. Is another place you can begin. Because when you begin to remember who you are, everything begins to change. The way you think, the way you choose, and the way you show up in your life. And I truly believe that when we begin to heal ourselves, we create more compassion, more understanding, and ultimately a better world for everyone. With much love, I'll see you in the next one.